watch the world burn.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Neko Biscuit back at it again with another video, and today I am with Hatter,
Howdy.
Sweden,
Sup?
and my boy Zilla.
What up?
Alright, let's get right to the video, boys. Alright.
Okay, so I want to start by talking about just what your general thoughts are on 222. Like, what do you... Yeah, just go.
Okay.
Just general thoughts.
Okay, my thoughts on it are that I'm actually liking the change, but the only downside I have to it is that I liked triple DPS comps, which I'm fine with them disappearing because dive and all those other metas will come back. But
Yeah,
what
and we'll
I
get
fear,
to talk more in depth about those
what I fear is the how the characters are right now. They need nerfed.
Yeah, we'll we'll get a chance to talk about that because I think we all have our own opinions on people that need to be changed and just general stability of the game.
I am more or less, I'm on, Jesus. I am on the fence about the situation.
Well,
more,
Reinhardt's
for
getting
two
buffed,
reasons.
so...
I know, that is a good thing. However, the good thing about it is that, the Reinhardt getting buffed is gonna do a lot. And then Reinhardt is because Reinhardt's a pivotal part of like this whole new change. And then as for like other stuff, like for example, dive meta coming back, 222 lock and so on and so forth. I think that there's going to be a lot of new metas coming out, whether it's fortress slash bunker or even just like dive coming back with new characters and everything. I think that with these recent changes plus roll lock, it's going to be like very different, to say the least. It's gonna be basically a wild west of just metas now. So
Yeah, I think things are certainly up in the air right now about where things are going to head. I think Bunker's still going to remain part of that, but we'll get into stuff like that later. General thoughts, my thoughts, I think it's overall a positive thing. I think it definitely has some negatives, but I like the direction they're taking. I don't like that they're buffing characters. I think it's better to nerf a lot of people to maintain a stable game.
Agreed.
Yeah. How do you have any thoughts on that?
I think a lot of this is going to come down to, I personally am one of the only people here that thinks General 222 overall is going to be bad, just because we already have way too much freedom right now as it is in a game. We get to go in, we get to play the game, whatever character we want. However, I think they're taking the right steps to making the game better. But what they've done is basically forced you into going into a set comp that you have no idea what you're going to be set into. And whereas if they were to, instead of making it directly 222 and the player could choose per player what they wanted on their team, say they wanted 3 DPS, 2 healers, and a tank, they could choose that on the team comp that they wanted, and they would be placed with people who wanted similar comps, like they had. But I think with just being forced into 222 lock, it's going to be very much like Goats is now, is one comp will eventually develop to be the only meta, similar to how we had Dive for fucking forever, and then Goats came out of the blue, and
Was the
that's what's
worst
been
thing
dominating now.
ever to be in Overwatch.
Personally, I like Goats. Like, it was something that I genuinely enjoyed for the few times that I did get to play it. But that was because I was so burnt out from playing dive comp so often and from playing bunker comp so often, because bunker comp was one of the easiest comps to run. Just because it was a general, you throw an Orisa down, you put a couple healers on a Bastion or a Junkrat, whatever your team's comfortable with, and it was basically a spam comp. And it didn't take nearly as much coordination as dive comp did, so it wasn't hard to go and do. And as much as people say dive will counter, bunker occasionally, yes, but that's only occasionally. A lot of the times, if you do run a dive with like a Winston, the Winston's not going to survive a jump in.
Yeah.
Unless you are at higher tier ranks, dive is very heavily countered by uh, bunker. And most times at higher tier ranks, you wouldn't play dive against bunker. They're better comps for it anyway. So in general, I think it's going to end up being like what it is now with Ghost, just with more dive and more bunker. It's just going to be mirror comps back and forth. I think yes, there are going to be maybe a couple new comps that are going to be coming out because people are going to get tired of the old comps of dive and bunker. But you know, right now where the game is, it's not in a place where you should be limiting people so much to what specific comps they can play. And yes, in Overwatch League, there's been multiple teams that complained about goats and how, it wasn't fun to play and this, that, or the other. But, you know, in, Platinum, Diamond, Master games, uh, you're going to want to experiment more with team comps and you're going to still want to play different team comps. Now, maybe you want to play goats, so you should be able to choose to play goats. However, you shouldn't be forced into playing a role in goats that you didn't want to play.
Yeah, I think Overwatch League will be a different story from ranked because Overwatch League, it's all about what the audience wants to see, and a lot of the audience doesn't like watching goats, especially since it's gotten stale. I think that's just a whole nother thing. We'll be all excited to see DPS players get out of brig jail, but I,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's a whole
Uh-huh.
another egg. Yeah. I think something else that we should at least mention is the the how big the difference has gotten between counterplay and countering lately. I know that
It's
that was a big
literally
thing talked about in
just
Taimu's State of Overwatch
it's
video, but
literally just hard counter this, hard counter that. It's impossible to play certain characters now.
Now it's
yeah,
a rock paper scissors kind of world that we live in with Overwatch.
Yeah.
exactly. And I hope that 222 at least starts to lead us in a direction where, because certain comps like goats are played less because they can't play because it's 3-3. I just hope that the balance changes made help to support certain characters, and like actually we can get into talking about the balance changes. One of them is Brig. She's getting uh she's a lot easier to fight against as Tracer now, because Tracer, infamously couldn't play against a Brig. It
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you
Unless if
have
you
the
were in higher ranks like Diamond, Master, and GM,
yeah.
Tracer, I mean, Brig would just fucking shield bash you and you're dead.
Yeah, like right now, her Inspire, her passive is halved for self healing now, which I think is great. Her shield has been reduced from 500 to 200 health. Her stun is decreased, and she has the change to her armor packs so that it goes over 2 seconds instead of instantly.
Yeah, I heard about that. I think
Yeah,
that's a
I think
better
that just makes it.
change. It makes
I
her a
think it just makes
healer and
it.
not a DPS.
There's a lot more counterplay going on now instead of just plain old countering.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk about the rest of Brigida's changes because she does have some good ones. Her healing, in her Inspire for other people has increased 30. She has 3 charges for her armor pack. I think this is a good thing. I don't know yet because I haven't gotten a chance to play it because PTR's PC.
Yeah, I
um,
could play
My
it,
biggest
but
concern is
I
that
prefer
for the
console.
armor packs is that she can use them multiple times and stack them on like a tank or like take a Hammond for example. Hammond has 600 health plus a little bit of armor, and with that, like if it stacks, that would make Hammond basically nearly unkillable, counting his adaptive shield. And you're fighting a 6-man, he'd probably have more health than even just a Winston Primal Raging. So,
You'd be surprised how fast
yeah,
people can kill you when you're Hammond.
yeah, you
uh-huh.
have to be able to take into account that the armor pack will deal over time, and when you compound them onto one person, they still take
It's
individual armor
useless,
pack.
and it's still useless. You should
That is true.
spread them
That is
out
true.
as Brig whenever the new
Yeah,
change comes through.
yeah,
Hopefully, that's my biggest concern about that was that they would stack if you did it on one person, because then
They
that would
don't.
incline a person to do. Which I'm
what
glad.
Yeah,
Which I'm
they
glad
that's
will
because if
end
they
up
didn't,
doing is it wouldn't stack. It would just take longer for that person to heal.
yeah.
yeah. Which actually I think is a good thing because if it did stack, I think that would be a little bit broken because then all you'd need to do is stack it on a certain hero like Hammond, for
Genji
example,
or
or Genji,
On a carry hero, let them rush in.
like
Yeah.
yeah, like a Reinhardt or a Genji, or even just like a nano boost or a nano boosted character, and
oh
you got
god.
yourself you have yourself an unkillable, unstoppable machine. So
And
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
in
that's something.
in combination with Ana especially, Brig is going to be very powerful now. Uh, being as even though her healing over time for her pack, she has 3 packs now, does healing over 2 seconds for 120 healing each pack, and it will stack. It's just for every pack that you throw onto a person, the current duration would be extended by 2 seconds. So say you had already thrown 1 pack on someone and you throw another one, and you had 1 second left, you would have 3 seconds instead for it to stack. And I'm assuming the armor would break for that specific pack as well for its stack time, and each pack would be counted differently depending on what you stacked it on.
So essentially,
And
it's useless to stack them.
yes,
It's
kinda.
situational.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's situational. Like if you were to go and like Zilla said, have a nano booster like Genji, for instance,
Yeah.
and he gets nanoed back to full health, well they take him down to half health. You throw a health pack on him, and he'll heal up, and you throw another health pack on him while he has a second left on that. He still has passive healing going on, while you can go and throw that third health pack onto someone else,
True.
for instance. And he would still have that little bit of extra healing while you looked away to go and deal with one other person on your team.
Yeah.
Yep. Another change to Brig is her whip shot. I think this is just a good quality of life change. It just makes it go a little farther and just be a little faster. I think that's fine. It'll just help her activate her passive more for your
Yeah.
team. Let's see. We have the global
Ooh,
ultimate cost going up by 12%. I think this is much needed.
Yeah.
Ultimates determine the game too often now, and if you watch the league, it's ultimates determine the fight every time.
Yep.
mhm.
We also have a slowing effect. The instead of stacking together, the friendly and enemy slowing effects are separate, and the movement speed is only reduced by whichever slower. I think that's good for. I was telling Zill about this earlier. Like a Reinhardt who's going through a car wash, he's not as slow now with his shield up. He can turn around faster, which is I think is good.
Yeah, that's a definite good change, especially for us console players, because we turn slower in the first place.
Mhm.
Because mouse and keyboard, the mouse can. I've turned up my mouse to max when I was playing on PC, and you can essentially turn around just by moving your mouse literally a freaking centimeter.
Yeah, DPI changes a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
hmm speaking of slowing down, like the whole idea that the each turret slows you down because one turret slows you down, or originally anyway, one turret from Sim would slow you down by a small percentage. I think it was by 10%. So having four, that means your movement speed would be slowed down by a whole 40%. And that's why you would move so slow when there's a car wash going through. And I thought
Mm.
that was the most broken aspect of Sim
Yeah, let's actually
as a tank here.
let's actually talk about Sim because she's got some interesting changes too, mostly to um
Teleporter.
Teleporter.
her teleporter. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
now an infinite duration and souls destroyed. The cooldown's increased. The max range is increased from 25 meters to 30, but it breaks if the entrance is more than 40 meters from the exit. I think that's really important for those
Essentially, if
moving
you were to
platforms.
put it on a moving platform, it would break.
Yeah, I think that's really important and good.
That's really definitely good.
And it increases the teleport reuse time, so there's more of an opportunity for you to jump on a target and punish them for going through a teleporter.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Tracer, her pulse bomb got her damage increased. I think that's good for
That is,
just dealing with
Finally,
yeah,
healing.
that's, I saw that too.
Hatter,
I was like, oh,
Hatter,
finally
you
I can
should
play
talk about that.
Tracer again.
Yeah, Hatter, do you want to discuss that since you played a lot of Tracer? So, like, how would this
personally,
affect the meta and stuff?
Personally, back when dive was extremely prominent, like it was one of the only comps that was still played. Uh, Tracer was almost always included in dive comps. You couldn't get a game without a Tracer very often, and you would see that in like the early stages of Overwatch League as well, when dive comp was still very prominent. Tracers very heavily dominated the game where there wasn't very much in it because she couldn't be played in it, and a lot of the reason for Tracer's initial nerf was because people thought that Pulse Bomb was taking, too much damage to tanks, and for how quickly it was being given to them. So a Tracer could farm off a Pulse Bomb in, 15 seconds off of a tank by getting 3 clips on a headshot, and, then go and pulse 3 people in a Graviton to win, a fight or something.
Yeah.
Assuming they didn't already kill multiple people, because Tracer is already a high damaging character per second. And because of that, she becomes a very valuable character to begin with. But she lost a lot of that value when she couldn't even take out, some DPS, specifically Bastion, uh, with her Pulse Bomb. A lot of players used to go against Bastions with Tracer, just because Tracer was very high mobility and Bastion required you to be stationary most of the time unless you decided to go recon with it. And I think it punished Tracers a lot more that didn't understand comboing shooting with a punch and the pulse bomb uh, before. So it did require slightly more skill with the less damage, but I also think it wasn't doing enough damage to tanks as well, and especially now with the multiple ultimate generation decreases that have happened, or increases technically. But she now gets her ultimate slower, and I think it's to a point where the developers have finally decided, okay, maybe we should up her damage back again a little bit. And I think 350 is a good place to put it because it will wipe out any DPS that is there.
And
With
armor
still,
too, with
yeah, and
armor.
yeah, with
Shred
armor.
it'll shred through armor.
Mhm. Uh, and it will take out most healers, excluding Brig, assuming she blocks it with a shield, uh, or Baptiste with his immortality. Um,
Or Reinhardt with his shield.
Well,
Hmm.
I was going to say, tanks, however, are a different story. It's not going to kill tanks now, but it is going to heavily lower their HP to
Hmm.
a very strong point where one pulse bomb into a well-populated area is going to make a whole lot more difference now than it did before. And I'm assuming explosive radius damage is also going to be affected as well with the
Yeah,
pulse bomb.
because
And
that
it's
was
not
like a
just going to
big
be.
problem with the original pulse bomb. Everyone was like, "Oh man, the explosion isn't big enough," because one would think that when you throw a bomb in the middle of someone, in the middle of a small group, it would at least have a blast radius that would, like,
Mm,
say like there's 4 people in a big square. Like if you threw a pulse bomb into the center of that, people were saying, "Oh well, it would kill all 4 of them. It would probably kill like two
One.
because of yeah,
mhm,
it would probably kill two or just one because it would either do the magna stick before because this was before they fixed the whole sticking problem, um,
mm.
and or it would just like kill both. It would kill two, but it would just make the other two kind of low-ish, but like half health.
Well, and
Not
also
not
before,
you know.
Tracer was again way more prominent in the meta, so being as Tracer had so few. I don't think she had any changes up until the Pulse Bomb change. I think she was the only character who went through so many seasons without getting a nerf uh, or change in general. So when Tracer got that, many Tracer players, had mixed feelings. Some of them were like me and were like, "Oh, eh, it could be worse. Tracer does enough damage to where I'm just fine playing it without." Whereas there
I
were
know
also
that
a
from
lot of players
experience.
there were also a lot of players who, hadn't been able to play Tracer all that well anyway, and did rely a lot more on her ultimate to get those kills. And they became very good at, like you said, using the Magnus stick before it, was patched and everything. And once it was patched, being as they can no longer use that, I guess, exploit. It wasn't really an exploit; it was a bug. Once
Yeah, it
they
was a
couldn't,
bug that they just didn't know because it would be just like
yeah,
near the hitbox, and it would just stick to the hitbox itself.
But being as they no longer could use that, along with the lower damage, it became very hard for Tracer players with less game game experience and mechanical skill to really be able to utilize Tracer to a full extent of her kit, and
Hmm.
that really did affect a large portion of Tracer players. Uh, and even high ranked players, they weren't able to get nearly as well. I say that, but then you go and look at players like Kabaji and Defran, who you could send them on a tracer that does 100 damage on a pulse bomb and fine, whatever. But back to the
Yeah.
point, it's like players aren't always going to be as good as the Kabajis, the Carpes, and players like that. And that's something that I think the devs look way too much into is they either look way too much for the Overwatch League standards, or they look way too much to the forum criers.
Hmm.
Uh, and you don't really get much of that in between where people are actually genuinely debating about the subject, where it needs to be, what could be fixed, and what would genuinely work. You'll get the people who are like, "Oh, nerf break," but then they don't give any genuine
Any
reason.
explanation?
Yeah, they don't give even a general basis to go and nerf break on. Uh, but then you also get the players who are in like Overwatch League who are like, Brig's okay. And then you'll get the people who are kind of in the middle and genuinely debating and trying to give solutions for both sides. Because
Hmm.
players plat through masters, and from what I know of players in that rank, the ones that I talk to at least, uh, they in general will be more likely to debate a subject based on past experience compared to what is coming up for their rank. A lot of them will be like, "Yeah, I remember when this was happening for this," because you'll still get in diamond games master players, and you also in platinum games get diamond players, and you can in very very few situations get platinum master games. But
You'd have to be 2900 though.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very very rare and uncommon for that, but it can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we should talk about the big German engineered elephant in the room, which is the new
I was gonna
Reinhardt
get to that.
buff.
Yeah,
Oh
I
no,
I was gonna get to that.
have a
I
quick
figured I'd do this.
comment about Genji's deflect.
Mhm.
Um, when they nerfed Genji's deflect, now there's a bug where if I'm facing somebody right in front of them and they shoot me, sometimes the bullet will go through my deflect. I just wanted to make that comment, and hopefully Blizzard will fix that at some point.
Yes, I've noticed that too. Even when I'm like Reinhardt, sometimes I'll fire strike and it just goes through the deflect, and I'm just sitting there wondering what just happened.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so now
we
for
have a
the German
few.
engineered elephant.
We'll get to them. We have a couple
Aw.
just quality of life things that I think just improve the game just a little bit. Ash's reload time decreased from zero point 0.3 to 0.25 seconds. I think
I'm
that's
going to love that.
fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. That just makes it
Hell
better.
yeah! All the
Doomfist, his
sniper
melee
mains
no
are
longer pauses his ammo reload.
I'm
I
gonna
think
actually
love
that's
be
just
that
really
too.
fine
good.
with it. Yeah. Orisa, her protect her. No, we'll get to her after. Yeah, let's talk about Reinhardt. His passive that reduces
All right.
knockback effects by 30%.
I think this is actually really good and really bad at the same time. There's a lot of pros and cons that can go with this. As a Reinhardt player, the biggest thing that you can do for your team is by kind of sticking by them, and booping as a general form of just movement or forced movement, as I call it, is by and large a big problem because of two things. One, it's that it's not necessarily the most consistent form of moving a character. Take a Doomfist for example. Like if you tap a Reinhardt, he moves like a small bit, and then if you fully charge punch a Reinhardt, who is wearing heavy armor and heavy almost everything, he gets sent flying back, similar to a Soldier 76 or a Roadhog or any other character.
You see,
However, there hasn't been a character in this game that's been able to counteract that sort of forced movement,
except for
and
Orisa.
except for Orisa. Yeah. Orisa can fortify herself, but why can't Reinhardt like just kind of bear with it? He's kind of the OG. He came before Reinhardt, and her fortify also has an extra effect, unlike Reinhardt's now. where it basically reduces incoming damage by a small degree. Now, here's the good side of it. The good side is that it'll actually prevent Lucio's and other and Doomfists
Yeah.
from getting from getting all their from farming their ultimate off of just by moving characters around. So like take a Doomfist, right? A Doomfist can get a lot of shields off of just punching a Zarya or punching a Winston or punching a tank or just punching a tank in general, right? But
Mhm.
the extra damage that they get after they hit a wall is by far the biggest driving force behind their shield game. So if a Doomfist like before this punches a full health Reinhardt, he'd probably have 400 shields if it was a fully charged punch and it was a full connect.
You
That's
see,
that's just based on just what he can do. Now, with this new ability, that kind of negates Doomfist from getting a bit too cocky when there's a Reinhardt around, because what can happen is that now can prevent them from attacking the tanks and getting a whole lot of shields and be more cautious. Like, oh man, Reinhardt is kind of resistant to my knockback. Maybe I should attack the Mercy instead. Or, hey, the Reaper's kind of out of position. Maybe I should attack him better. It causes characters like Lucio and Doomfist to kind of second guess their whole and Ash. I should also point out that Ash too.
Yeah.
It kind of caused them to kind of second guess themselves and be like, okay, so there's a high risk, high reward. I can dive the Reinhardt while he's low and get that punch off and maybe knock him into a closer wall, or I can risk it, punch him, have him skid back, and have him just charge me,
Yeah.
and I'll have to try and escape.
Yeah.
you,
So
And I
you,
think we can get a
s-
better perspective from someone like Neko about
you
yeah,
like
Neko
see,
can
what I
definitely talk
like to
about the Lucio
do
part.
is I play a lot of Lucio and Diamond, right? I have about total of like 10 hours in Diamond with Lucio. And what I like to do is I like to wall ride behind their enemy team and boop the Reinhardt towards my team out of position and have my team dive on them. What this change is going to do is it's going to lessen the effect of what I do.
Yeah, and the well, yeah, that's the con I was going to talk about. It's going to
And
make it so that way, like moving people out of position with or moving a Reinhardt more specifically out of position is going to be a lot more difficult. Now, that's good in the sense that like it can help the Reinhardt protect the team better and not have to worry about getting booped 20 feet the other direction. However, on the other hand, it can also be a bit detrimental because, like, God forbid the Reinhardt gets booped, or you try to boop a Reinhardt off an edge, and he's still standing, like he gets just knocked back just a slight bit. Like that can be a bit bothersome for some of these characters, because then it can be like, oh well, guess I'll die,
Yeah.
well, and here's something else that I think could very easily, give best of both worlds here to both the Reinhardt players and the players who do play Lucio and Bar and characters like that. I think keep the steadfast ability. I do believe he does need the knockback resistance,
Same.
but I don't think it should be
Mm-hmm.
a constant passive ability. I think it should be very similar to how like Brig has an something that activates her passive ability that happens. Uh,
it's an interesting take.
yeah,
That
I
might be
think for
useful.
like instance, Reinhardt, because a lot of Reinhardt players at lower elos want to play an extremely aggressive Reinhardt. However, at
Mm-hmm.
lower elos, a lot of times you'll get teams that are either too caught up in a fight that they pushed in without the Reinhardt, or the Reinhardt pushed in on his own, and the rest of the team is playing extremely passively. And I think if, it was activated by either, his shield being up, or, a constant, he used his attack for like however long, like 3 seconds of attacking, he got a steadfast ability, and he was able to reduce his knockback. It would make Reinhardt players think a little bit more consciously about, oh, I need to keep my shield up here because I'm near an edge, so that way I can take the blow of Lucio if need be, or, you know, I need to be attacking on point so I can also make sure I don't get knocked off points so I can counteract CCs. Uh, and I think with this just being an overall constant passive, it's going to get very much. Reinhardt players are going to get extremely ballsy with their plays, in ways that's going to hurt the teams more often than help, especially between gold through I'd say even probably diamond, uh, where Reinhardts do still play very recklessly. Uh, at least a lot of times. I have seen some Reinhardts that are very good Reinhardts and play well for their team, but a lot of times Reinhardts will play a lot more recklessly, and because of that, I think this change is gonna allow that bad habit to be more reinforced, and I think it should be like Briggs Inspire, like I said before, where it's triggered by some sort of activation.
Maybe
I
even
don't
Yeah,
make it an ability on its own.
I mean that would be
interesting.
as a
yeah.
all right. I can I kind of agree with what you're saying though, Hatter. I can see like where low elo, like especially considering I used to be there. Like
Mhm.
getting ballsy plays and stuff like that is sort of kind of it's how you evolve with Reinhardt because then you learn, oh well, this is kind of dumb. You it's like maturing as a human being. But um,
Mhm.
the biggest
But
reason why I think the that it being like a triggered ability will actually be more of a hindrance than anything is for one reason, and that's because of like it's for the Reinhardts that are actually trying to protect their team, the added stress of getting knocked out of position by a Lucio or a Doomfist is
mhm.
absolutely just a critical thinking moment. It's basically a fight or flight moment at that point because
It,
as soon as a Lucio comes in out of nowhere and you're pushing with your team, shield up and everything, that as soon as that happens, like if you drop your shield for a moment to fire strike the Orisa or send a fire strike towards the Widow that's trying to peek at you, like if they have that moment to boop you, they're going to take it. And as soon as you're knocked out of position, it's going
okay.
to be all over.
But
But
Zilla, like I said before with the Inspire, Inspire has a lingering effect. You attack someone and it
I mean, I
lingers
can
for a
see the
few seconds.
lingering effect. I didn't hear
So
the lingering effect. I apologize.
so being as I was comparing it to Brigida, that's what I mean by that is yes, a Reinhardt puts his shield up for a certain set amount of time and it will activate his ability. So he can't
Right.
just, instantly shield hop and then, have the ability for, like 10 seconds or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Uh I think there should be
Yeah.
like a set amount of time that you have to have before you get that ability.
There's
I don't
another
think it.
factor
Yeah,
I just
I think it'll be good
realized
with shield
as
dancing.
well. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I think another effect that like a lot of people are kind of thinking about is charges. Like if you charge a Lucio, usually the Lucio will try and boop you backwards. So
Mhm.
now how is it gonna work? Is it gonna affect the charge? Is it even gonna like stop the charge like it usually does? Um, because I know
That's interesting.
Doomfist collision is obviously a thing, so that's not gonna change. But for a Lucio though, it's gonna be very different because they don't have any form of like collision based attack. So when
Mhm.
they boop the Reinhardt, it's either going to like move them back like a small hop and the charge is gonna continue, or it's gonna just absolutely just annihilate them.
Uh,
So
what I
because
would end up having to do would be to move to the side and boop you away. Like,
well, I know, but then again, there's just still that 30%. So
yeah,
the question is, how far would I even go? Would I hit another teammate of yours, like if you're grouped up or something, like the Lucio's like mass healing, and you try and boop the Reinhardt away?
yeah,
Because back in the day, you could definitely move a Reinhardt like 20 meters or however far it used to be. Um, like it would be far, it would be a far toss of the
yeah,
Reinhardt, so the Reinhardt would be a threat. But now that it's reduced by 30%, it's just gonna move him like maybe 2 inches or something, and it's gonna affect your team still because of the knockback and the size of his hitbox.
Well,
So,
and another thing you gotta take into consideration right now is
mm,
Sombra. She also is getting a nerf during this, and I think that's gonna help out Rhine players again even more because before Rhine players would have that certain set amount of time
Yes.
between the hack, which was 6 seconds,
Definitely, yeah.
to
Now
keep
it's
their
five.
shit up. Yeah,
Yeah.
to
Now it's
5.
five for a hack, and the EMP takes longer to activate, so there's more
Yeah.
time to react.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are great.
So
Yeah.
All right, so, Sweden,
personally,
let's get
I
your take on it. I think we should get Sweden's take on this since he has
yeah.
a sort of opinion on Sombra, and then you can go, because then we can get both sides.
Sure. The hack. I I'm glad that they're reducing the hack because if you combine the EMP with the hack, it was just so long, and it's still a long time for a specific target, but it's a second shorter, which in higher levels is life or death in a lot of cases. The EMP activation is going to be especially hard at those higher levels and with those subtitles that a lot of people forget about that they're in now.
Yeah, I
um,
use them.
you can react with Zenyatta. You can react with all of these abilities to counter that. How fast is a hook? I think you might be able to hook a Sombra too if you're ready for it.
Oh, a hook takes 2 seconds. One to launch the hook, the other to connect.
Okay, well if you're waiting for it, you might be able to get a better jump on that. I think another really big change is Moira's fade, which can now be used while she's stunned.
Yeah,
That's
that's
huge. I don't
huge.
even know why they put that
That's
in.
massive, yeah.
I don't understand that.
My biggest question and concern for that is take Earthshatter is a mass stun. So how would that exactly work? Would she
Yeah,
get up and fade, or would she still be on the ground
I think
and
she would
not able
fade,
to
but
fade?
she'll still be able to pump in a whole lot of healing into her team while you're trying to capitalize on that ult, which is I think is stupid. I don't agree with the fade change.
For
See,
me, I think
But it
it's
also
more,
gives some counterplay to it against
yeah.
a Rhine ult.
I guess especially with the newer update, I can kind of see why, but at the same time, I don't think that her being able to fade out of a shatter is necessarily good, because I mean the whole point of Earth Shatter more or less is either to get rid of a target or just clear the board. That's like the biggest thing for Earth Shatter.
well,
It's
okay.
one of the most used ults besides DPS ults in the tank role. Reinhardt's ult is by far one of the most utilized ults in Overwatch. And that's not even considering Graviton Surge, because Graviton Surge does damage over time, yes, but Earth Shatter is a mass wipe if you can land it perfectly. But it's all
Hmm.
about timing and skill and learning the enemy. It's all mind games more or less, as you would Sweden. Um,
Yeah, what do you think, Hatter?
Uh,
so
personally, with Moira's fade, Moira was a strong character to begin with. Like, she had a lot of mass group healing. Plus, with her orb, she was very good with DPS and healing. Uh, then now tack on the increased fade effect. Uh, I think before she was powerful, but she was tolerable. Uh, now I think what they should have done with this fade effect was lower her damage. I don't believe she should be able to both be able to heal and damage to an extent where she at right now, and be able to negate stuns. Like that's like having just another Reaper, but in a healer slot with more healing.
Yeah.
It's it's just not gonna work out in a way that you'd want it to in a game.
And I
When
think
I
it's
can
going to
go,
negatively affect the lower ladders,
mhm,
especially because of that. At the higher levels, you can deal with the Moira, but when you get below Diamond, it becomes a struggle.
mhm. Yeah, and I think a lot as well about when you're playing against a Moira, and say you're playing a DPS, and you decide to go, oh, okay, the Moira's in our back line, I'm gonna go take out this Moira, and the rest of your team is just, on payload, and you're a DPS, and you're thinking, oh, okay, I should be able to take out a healer, because in my opinion, supports should be supports, tanks should be tanks, and damage should be damage. I don't think they should have mixing roles, or at least not extremely mixing roles. I don't think they should be completely defenseless as healers and tanks, but
Yeah,
I do
and they've got
believe that,
survivability. We've seen from all the Mercy plays in Overwatch
mhm.
League.
yeah.
Like
But I do,
Roadhog.
however, believe that, a DPS should be able to kill a healer. It shouldn't be able to go, I shouldn't be able to play, a Tracer against a Moira almost one clip of Moira. She instantly throw out a heal orb. I'm already half health. I go for a recall. I go and put another clip into her, but she's constantly healing off of me and her orb now, and I physically am just unable to kill her. And
Yeah.
Mhm.
at
I
that
think
point
that
in
it gets
time,
into the gray area of counterplay and countering,
Mhm.
but it's just
Another
something that
thing that I just realized, like with this new Fade update, that's gonna make it so much harder for a lot of like characters that should counter her to counter her. Take Roadhog. He can out heal all of the damage that she can do because her damage isn't as good as a
as
DPS.
a
It's
self heal.
damage over time, right?
well,
So
and
now
here was something that I
now
was going to
take
compare it to as
no
well
no
as
no
a lot.
wait. This is pretty big. This is pretty big, right?
Mm,
Just let me hear me out. Like with Roadhog, his hook is a massive stun. It's a stun that is almost instantaneous, and he pulls you in to get that close range damage for his spread. If she's able to fade out of a Roadhog hook, that's just going to be a completely different problem because the whole design of Roadhog's hook is to pull in a target to do extra damage or to pull them into a team so that way you could just basically get the jump on them, right?
mhm.
Like how would it be fair or at least balanced anyway for a Moira who is a healer, as you said, and healers should be healers, tanks should be tanks, to like fade out of a Roadhog hook which is designed specifically to counter her. Because the whole
Yeah,
point of Roadhog's hook is to counter fast moving characters. Take Tracer, Genji, uh, Lucio, and even and Moira. Moira it fits into that category.
Well, and
Uh,
here's another thing, Zilla, though,
yeah,
is like I said before, it would have been fine if this fade change had happened and she had a nerf with it, and it would have been a balanced change. However, she was an already strong character that they just made broken. That she was
yeah,
already in a
I
place
agree.
where in mini elos she was broken. Like Sweden said, anything below diamond really, it was very hard to take out a Moira on her own, unless you put multiple resources into a Moira. Uh,
yeah.
but now it's going to be even harder, probably up to even masters maybe, uh, to go and have that counterplay. Because like take characters them from a McCree for instance, who would be able to
Flash
in a
fan.
lot of cases, yeah, you could flash fan for instance,
Flash
or now
headshot.
with McCree's or with McCree's now buffed rate of fire, the flash
Just
headshot
ramp it
like you
up.
just said, you know,
Hmm.
it, it now gives Moira way too much accessibility to being able to escape her counters, and it's gone from a lot less of rock paper scissors shoot to rock paper scissors Moira, because Moira is now just always going to fucking win those battles. And she now has the healing to out heal the damage that's being put into her. She now has the ability to counter stuns, so she's no longer danger from McCree's and characters like that. Uh, she has the damage to keep up with a lot of DPS. uh, she also has the self healing, so she's not gonna, be at a point where, you know, she loses her orb and now has no self healing. No, she now has just basic self healing. Where with the orb, she has even more self healing, and I think in a lot of cases now, Moira is basically our new Brig. Brig was the character everyone complained about before, and I think with this change, without properly giving a debuff to Moira as well, she is going to end up becoming the new Brig to a lot of the forum criers.
And
And
we haven't
in
even talked about how it breaks halt hook combos for bunkers. That's huge. The Moira can
Mhm.
tank out that and just step in front. Like we hadn't even touched
Yeah,
that.
Hmm.
It just breaks comps
Especially
now.
since
Hmm.
now she can just fade out of the hook.
mhm,
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So
Yeah.
what's next on our list of topics?
Well, we've got another one that I think some people will like and some people will hate. Hanzo Storm Arrows being reduced from 6 to 5. I think this is so
It's
good.
a good
I
it
change.
is good.
Even though I
It,
play
fantastic.
Hanzo, I think it is a good change because Hanzo
mhm.
did way too much damage with it.
And
Hmm.
here's something that I
I think
think
we
Especially
agree
the
is
that it's good.
shields.
I think as well, uh, basically, and this has been brought up a lot, is they took Scatter Arrow and just made it a more direct and concise ability. And if you were gonna complain about it before when you couldn't hit headshots, you now have to go into taking into consideration. It's you can now hit headshots on multiple targets, and if you're accurate, those headshots, two of them, will instantly kill a target at an extremely fast rate of fire, and you can keep going on to another character at the same time.
Not to
And he
mention
became
that it
very,
shreds through shields too.
yeah, and he became very spammy. He became basically Junkrat V2, just with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Uh, mm, I think with
Yeah.
this, it will make you have to at least consider your option of, ooh, do I want to, waste my arrows on the shield? Do I want to, save my arrows for the tracer that's coming up behind me, and I'm gonna need, a faster uh, ability to go and take her out, or whatever it may be at the time. But I think this is a very good change for Hanzo, especially if you want people to, forget completely about the scatter arrow, because a lot of people would still now I've heard were like, I just wish Scatter Arrow was brought back because Storm Arrow is
Yeah.
just as unskilled and less people can use it, just because it's so unreliable and it's way more spammy and just less fun to play against.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think if you reduce the amount that they can actually spam with it, it makes it a lot better for
And I
everyone.
think,
And
yeah, and I think that Honda's one of those characters that has too low of a skill floor right now
mhm,
for how high a skill cap can be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
I
But speaking of,
especially.
oh,
Sorry. No. You go first.
no, I was gonna change the subject. I was gonna move on.
Oh,
So say what you
all
want.
right. Well, here, I'll make this brief. So, I think this is also the biggest reason why I think this is a good change. It's just because of the fact that Hanzo, at the core of his character, and I think every person, 99% of the Overwatch community can agree with this. Hanzo as a base character is designed to be and always should be a sniper. He's designed for long range projectile combat. He's designed
uh, Zilla.
for
Medium range
climbing,
is more
No,
like it
I was
though.
or
I,
I
I was
mean,
about to say, Hanzo is a
well,
mid-range sniper character that is
mid-range
projectile.
sniper. I'm sorry. I should have corrected myself there. My bad.
He's a
He,
sniper-like character.
he's a sniper-like
Hmm.
character. Allow me. You know what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed
Yeah.
now.
It's fine.
But all right. So the point is that I feel like by creating Storm Arrow, it's more or less just gives him an excuse to become up close and personal with a tank or like with a healer. And
Hmm.
and like you mentioned before, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing because it gives them like that's what they shouldn't think like that, or the people anyway shouldn't be like, oh well, now I can just shred through this Reinhardt shield by just spamming my storm arrow the shield. No, I feel like what the point should be is to use it in a different sense. Especially now that they have 5 arrows now. Now they're going to be more conservative with it and be like, okay, now I don't have to just spam it into someone. Now I can use it for either, crowd control, like, getting the mercy low, getting a couple DPS low with shots, and not focusing on let me just drop down in front of this Reaper and spam all 6 arrows, even though it takes 3 to kill him.
Hmm.
Yeah, and just like Hanzo, it has a small but important change. I think another one is Orissa's barrier. Her cooldown is being increased from 8 seconds to 9 seconds. I think this is something else that is better for the game.
Yeah.
I think, yeah,
Hmm.
I think it will affect the game a
especially
lot.
since that, especially since she can now use her shield while she's reloading, which was a big change as well because a lot of people were like, "Oh man, they're gonna support bunker count now." But now that
Hmm.
she's got a higher cooldown, I think that's actually a good balance between the fact that now she doesn't have that short of a cooldown on her shield, and now that she can deploy her shield while she's reloading.
Yeah.
So now she's got to be more careful with the shield and the shield placement.
Yeah. Another, I think that might be it actually. Wrecking Ball. That was it. His minefield, his projectile speed's 10 to 13, so they spread out more, and the activation time is faster. I think that's just
I
quality of life.
I think that's
Yeah.
actually really, really good, especially since I've started playing Wrecking Ball recently. with the minefield, it can be very frustrating when it's in a small area and just everyone's just like, oh, let me just tiptoe around this big old octagon of mines. What else are you gonna do? But now that they're more spread out, they can actually cover a wide area, and which is the whole point of area denial. So
I would like to point out that you have to be in the air for them to spread out more.
yeah,
So
which is
Yes. This is
which is
this is
good.
in the air.
So yeah, in the air, it's definitely should spread out more than it originally did, and even then, that's not by a lot. Because you know, when I would use wrecking ball in the air, it would be like a very small range, and sometimes the mines would just land in random spots that wouldn't
yeah,
affect
it
anybody.
really felt
So
like that.
yeah.
Mhm.
So now, if you're like on a control map, like say Lijiang, just or Eichenwald, like on the payload part, like if you're going to use it, then it should be more widespread and should spread across whatever area you're covering. Hence why Wrecking Ball says
It's called
area denied.
minefield.
Yeah, I know, area denied. Except it's not though. I could just walk through it, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
so I think this is a good, like you said, quality of life thing, and I think it'll actually improve the playability of Wrecking Ball. Maybe even increase it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. With these changes to 222 comes the opportunity for new compositions to be played, and other comps like Goats and 321 aren't even possible to play. So let's talk about the metas a bit. So Goats is out, so clearly we don't have to worry about that. But what do y'all think about Bunker going into 222?
Bunker, I
Mirror
think, is
comps.
actually going to be very difficult, and I mostly say this just out of experience. Um, with Bunker, there's a lot of coordination that needs to go, and there's a lot of like there's a lot of grouping up, which can take valuable time off the clock, and it's just a lot of work to play Bunker, which is why I personally think that with Bunker, it's gonna be more of a hey, let's use this. Like it's gonna be more of a team based. Like if you're just six stacking, I feel like Bunker's gonna be the go to. But if you're in a normal comp, like solo queuing, um, I think the best bet is either gonna be Ryan Zarya or just even dive because
I think that's
dive,
interesting,
you know,
but I think I would disagree with that, and I think Hatter might too.
I disagree as well because there's gonna be room with all these buffs and nerfs that are gonna be coming for
that is
to
true.
say let's at least say like 3 different new types of metas, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially since Moira's Fade can now counteract stuns, and the
And
Wrecking Ball spread has been increased as well.
you also got to take into consideration technically you can still play goats. You just have to swap, take your DPS into soldier and Doomfist.
Yeah,
No, you
that is
make it
true.
you make it a Ryan Zarya comp with
Doomfist and
was
a
it Hack? Yeah,
Doomfist
you can
and a
play
soldier.
Hackfist. Yeah,
That too.
I think Hackfist is one of those things that is going to be changed, especially by the Sombra changes.
Yeah.
It's going to be harder to focus a target down with the 5 seconds instead of 6. It's just
Mhm.
going to probably be more punishable now, which I think is a
Mhm.
good thing. But I still also think it's got a lot of power to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think with
Uh.
222, it is gonna be very much in the same predicament that Ghost was in, where it is going to be we're gonna find the meta very quickly, and once we do find that meta, which in my opinion is likely gonna be some variation of Ryan Zarya or Goats, mainly, uh, Sombra is gonna be extremely powerful in those comps now because Goats was
Not to
heavily
mention
countered
Moira
by
too.
Sombra. Yeah, and Moira as well. Goats heavily countered by Sombra. Bunker heavily countered by Sombra. Uh, Dive extremely heavily countered by Sombra. Like
Yeah, and we're going to be able to
Yeah.
talk a lot about Sombra when we get into the specific characters. But another comp I do want to talk about is Dive, because a lot of people said think it'll still be stale, but I think it's was still more fun than playing comps like Goats.
Same.
It required a lot of
Yeah.
skill, well,
see,
most of the
okay,
time.
for someone
Unless you're
who
Winston.
played Dive, for someone who played Dive for I don't know a solid eight
Year
nine
and a half.
seasons and like year and a half, Dive got staler than the old bread in the fucking cupboard. Like it's bad. In my opinion, it got even worse than Ghost, and I think that's a lot of the reason why, the community was very split in the beginning with Ghosts, because a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is just boring. It's entirely based off of ultimates," whereas Dive was, more based off of genuine player skill. But in an actual game, if you were gonna go and find a Dive comp team and a Goats team, I'm more confident in saying I could find a Goats team than a Dive comp team
Hmm.
in one-on-one competitive play, because to me you have to have that coordination with Dive, and with Goats it's a lot less overall player skill, as long as you can make sure your healers are entirely on point. It's less based around DPS skill, and I think without Dive now, or not Dive, without Goats now, Dive is going to be extremely prominent again, and I do believe it's going to get stale quickly as well, and it's going to have one of the same problems that Goats
So it's
had,
basically
where
going to be a second.
I think when people complained about Dive, they gave us Goats. When people complain about Goats, they're going to re-give us Dive. I think that's what's going to happen.
That's
I
an
mean,
interesting
plus,
perspective to take. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I'd also like to point out something. The common theme amongst all these like metas, I feel like the
Mhm.
most common theme with these kind of metas is that most of these metas are actually reliant on the tanks, which is why I think like just to kind of not to kind of tidbit at like the next topic, but um like when if there was like another tank, I feel like it would just change all metas completely. Like say if there was like a very high damage like but defensive tank that just suddenly came out of nowhere, like
So
literally just
Roadhog
crawled
V2.
out of. Yeah, let's just call him Roadhog V2, just so that way it's like a uh name. Roadhog V2 would probably just change the whole entirety of the meta. Like there'd be another meta probably either revolving around him or just make or break him. Like,
Hmm.
say he has an ability that, for lack of a better idea, has a where he pulls out a flamethrower and just starts spreading fire. There's a lot of characters. There could be a couple of characters that can counteract that, like Sombra. Maybe she can hack the flamethrower. Hey,
Well,
maybe
okay.
Torb. Maybe he has like some sort of heat resistance.
Here's the
There's a
thing that I
lot of
think is
meta
going to be the
changes
problem with that,
that
though,
are based around
is for what you just described is another CC. And CC and stun have been two things that have been so heavily complained about, especially
Yeah.
with, recent seasons, like the past at least 4 or
Oh
5
no,
have
I
been.
was just using that as an example. I wasn't
Yeah,
actually
but what I'm
a
saying is
CC.
the way Blizzard now takes things is they'll think they're doing a service with giving us these characters that will counteract an ability that is already in the game. However, all they're doing is making more CC for their other abilities that were already being countered anyway. Uh, and then you have a load of countering that's already happening to one character, making them next to useless. It's like, how much can you really take on one character before, having to just completely rework the character?
That is true. Yeah. Well, okay. Well, the point I was trying to make is that I feel like tanks in general are less the element of these like new meta changes. And with Euro 31 just around the corner, like who knows if this meta if dive meta is gonna resurrect or if there's gonna be a whole new meta. If there's gonna if even if this isn't a tank, there's always a meta around new characters. Sombra didn't come to the meta until you know around what was it like? It was after dive meta, but it was before, so it was like that little middle. Um, she started being used a lot as like a support character. Then they buffed her a bit, and now she's being used, as a damage character again. And she's still very prominent in Overwatch. You can see her in Quick Play and FFA and in Arcade, just all over the shop. Because with the nerfs and stuff, that might change. Who knows? So, all right. So I think I do now see like you and Neko's point where it comes to Dive probably coming back and Bunker probably being maybe prominent. Who knows? But at the bottom line is I think that whatever direction this is going to go, it's obviously going to be either going to make or break the balancing system, I think,
Yeah.
because
And but yeah,
oh, here
I
you
like
go.
that we're having more metas. At least we have more options, and some of those options are becoming more and more viable. We have
Mhm,
Death Ball, we have Dive, we
definitely.
have Hack Fist, we have Bunker, which I think in a perfect world we could be able to interchange these and just play them against each other. But we're not in a
Except
perfect world, so
except soon we can. It's just like we've constantly complained about so far. Is it's always going to go back to that rock paper scissors. You get a bunker comp. Oh, you get a comp with Sombra. Oh, you see a comp with Sombra. You now find characters that don't rely on their abilities, and you put them in instead. And that's how you're going to
I
be.
I think that's still better than having just one comp, though,
See, I don't
isn't it?
know.
You have
Right?
more options.
You have more options, but at the same time, if I'm going to play rock paper scissors, I want to at least be on the same grounds. Like,
Especially
I'd
with
rather.
rock paper scissors being a very prominent. Like Seagull talked about it, professional players talked about it as well, and I feel like there should be more counterplay, if anything. Take Ryan
Yeah.
McCree, like the example that Seagull used. There's a lot of counterplay there. The McCree can flash above the Ryan shield. The Ryan could be smart, tilt it up. The McCree can psych him out, put it below the Ryan shield. The Ryan can jump back in order to avoid the flash altogether. There's a whole lot of
Mhm.
things that you can do in order to fight each other with McCree and Reinhardt, but there's not a lot of stuff to go against other that's similar in nature to that sort of mindset. Like take Doomfist and think here. Take Doomfist and Mercy. Just for a lack of a better comparison. Mercy has a lot of damage with her pistol, and for lack of a better uh term, has a bullet the size of a truck, so she can land those headshots. But in the end, the Doomfist is going to just outlast her in every single category. He can self heal with those shields. His punch does a whole lot of damage, and probably could one shot her if she makes any form of contact with. So it all like just for again, this is just an example. So it's it's all about like the counterplaying with a lot more characters. When people have said that Roadhog and May are good counterplay, when nowadays it's not really as easy as it seems. With like because the May can definitely freeze the Roadhog. That's going to happen. But if she freezes him right as he's about to heal, it's all over. And that's something that could also be implemented. More counterplay. So I think with this 2-2-2 lock, counterplay is either going to be non-existent or it's going to be a very minimal amount of it.
See, okay, and here's what I think as well before we start on anything else is like I said before, if we were to allow the players to decide uh what amount of characters they wanted of each category in their comps, how many DPS, healers, and tanks in their comps, it would allow for more metas and more comps to be created and molded, and it wouldn't just stereotype a singular, person to be playing a comp. Like, yes, Overwatch League teams will get good with certain metas of comps. However, in making them, say, you lock them into a 1-3-2 comp of tank, DPS, and healer, uh, locking them into that now facing their enemy, which they don't know what their enemy is going to lock into. Maybe they lock into Ghosts. Maybe they lock into 222. But however it may be, now their enemy is locked onto that specific set, and that having that specific set, uh, having a certain set of characters that you are able to play is fine, but being able to mold your team composition that you have developed by yourself is a lot better for the community as well because it doesn't limit them in the way that direct 222 hard lock does. Uh, And personally, I'm okay with 222. Like I enjoy 222, but it's not, something that I want to always play. And with this, it's going to be something that I have to always play. And I think Blizzard took the right step, but it's not enough of a step. They took one step forward, but did they really take one step forward, or did they just fall 2 steps back? Because they're just doing the exact same thing they did again.
They're basically kind of recycling. Should
Hmm.
because like you said, this might be the second coming of dive meta thus far. Like with the fact that it's
Hmm.
two tanks, Winston Diva, two DPS, Tracer, and
Genji.
what was it, Soldier, Tracer
And
and Genji, right?
but
And
before
then two healers.
the
So
and before people go and say, oh well, the people who play DPS are gonna have a hell of a lot longer queue time than whoever else. Yeah, they are, which is gonna make it really fucking apparent to DPS. Hey, maybe I should flex to something other than DPS occasionally if I want to actually go and play
that's
competitive.
another big change that I think is a
It,
welcome one.
because now it's like, is the role queue gonna make it a little bit longer for DPS anyway because DPS are majority? Yes. However, it's also going to make it very you know easy to just hop into a game as a tank or healer. And if DPS want to get in quicker, and I think this will make it even better anyway, is DPS can either play more heavily DPS based comps and hop into comp quicker, or they could play less DPS and play more towards healer or tank, and it would develop a flexibility between tanks, healers, and DPS. And
Definitely, yeah.
unfortunately, right now we have such a contrast between the types of players. Uh, Healers and tanks will often complain about their DPS. DPS will often complain about the healers and tanks. And it's just become to a point where it's like, now, what if we let them choose? But we don't get that choice automatically chosen for us. And what they're doing is now auto choosing that choice for us, but in a way that's going to hurt team comps, I believe, after a certain point, comparatively to help them.
And with that, I think this is a good place to stop the first part of this. You don't have to. You don't have to include this, Neko. This is just for me. I'm just doing two parts because this is
Yeah.
getting long. Um,
Yeah, I mean, we are giving a lot of information too.
yeah. So I'm just gonna end the first part.
Alright.
With that, I think that's a great place to end this for now. Thanks for coming, guys. Hatter, Godzilla, and Neko Biscuit. You want to plug yourself real quick?
YouTube.com/c/Neko Biscuits.
Yeah, he makes
And
Overwatch clips and compilations.
I'm in one of them. Go check that video out.
Make sure to check out Come to Sweden too. Like, comment, and subscribe. You know all that YouTuber stuff.
Yeah.
All right, see you in the next
Give it,
video.
let him pay for his mortgage.
Pay for his mortgage.
Well, this
That's a
is
mini
about
one.
an hour long, so I'm gonna end it here as well. That's been it for this video. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.
Yo, see